Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I've been working on a little project on the Monza lately where I'm trying to get the new interior installed. The interior is going to be made out of a 40 thousandths inch thick aluminum sheet that I purchased from Allstar. I'm going to show you how I make the templates, how I cut the sheet metal, how I bend the sheet metal, and what I've got done so far. The first thing I did was go out and find some cardboard big enough for the template of the section that I was working on. Whether it's going to be your firewall, your floor, or your trunk, you're going to need a big enough piece of cardboard to make a template without having any seams in it. The piece on the right is actually a display board for a project. It's thinner than regular box cardboard, but it's also very rigid. So after a few hours of cutting cardboard, I have several templates made for the rear frame section of my car. I like using the cardboard because I'm able to make notes on the cardboard with a permanent marker as I'm cutting. Sometimes I want to make the template just a little bit longer for a bend, or if I've cut the template too short, I need to add a little bit of material. You can always take some material off, you can never add material on. This is what the templates look like around my X bars in the rear of the car. They didn't come out as good as I wanted them to, but they are pretty tight on the bars. I did have to make the rear section in 4 different pieces, but it should come out okay when I rivet it together. And here I have my templates all laid out on the floor. It took 9 different pieces to make the rear floor section for my car. The cardboard worked well for writing the notes in Sharpie, as well as using masking tape to fill in some small areas where I cut the cardboard too short. Now it's time to head over to the sheet of aluminum, trace out my templates, and cut out my aluminum. I purchased a 4-foot by 10-foot section of aluminum from Allstar. This is their plain aluminum. It has no coating on it or color of any kind except for a clear plastic coating on one side. I like to trace out my templates on the aluminum, use the solid lines for cuts and the dashed lines for where I'm going to make my bends. After I trace out my template, I always use a straight edge to clean up the edges for easier cutting. Now I only use dry erase markers when tracing my templates on the aluminum. I had a fear that the permanent marker would leach through the clear plastic and stain the aluminum. This is a corner of my aluminum sheet that is bent because I dropped it carrying it in the garage. I'm going to sacrifice this corner and demonstrate the clear plastic coating that they do put on these sheets to protect the aluminum. I also wanted to mention a 4-foot by 10-foot sheet of aluminum has 28 feet of straight edge on it. So if you're going to cut your templates out of the aluminum, save the straight edges for the most critical parts that people are going to see. I have cut all of my pieces of the sheet aluminum out with tin snips. Although this is a very inexpensive way of cutting the aluminum, it does leave an unsavory jagged edge along it. So I have to go back over the edges that I want to look good with a file of a couple different sizes and shapes to try to smooth it off the best I can. You can tell the top edge of this aluminum is quite a bit smoother than the jagged side edges. After I get the edges of my sheet metal to the desired smoothness with a file, it's time to bend it in the brake. This is a Harbor Freight 30-inch sheet metal brake. It's the tabletop version that clamps to your workbench, and it has a bar that goes across the sheet metal that you have to manually clamp down before you bend. All I have to do is line up my dashes with the crease in the sheet metal brake, give it a slow tug, then I can bend my 90-degree angles I need on my sheet metal. When I was bending the rear floor sections, I couldn't get 2 90-degree angles right next to each other that were desirable. I opted for this aluminum channel instead. It's 1 inch by 1 inch and 1/16 of an inch thick, and one stick of it only weighs 1 pound. I took these sections and riveted them to the front of the wheel tubs to strengthen the wheel tubs and straighten them out, which also gave me a nice square edge to rivet the floor to. And this is how all the sheet metal looks sitting in the car. The fitment is pretty good. I just need to drill all of the holes in it and start riveting it in place. I'm not going to start on the floor panels until I get my transmission back because I need to make the trans tunnel and make sure everything fits. Now it's time to work on the firewall. Since the area my firewall is going into is neither flat nor square, I needed a starting point for my sheet metal. I got more of that aluminum channel, the 1" by 1", and made a bar that went all the way across the body at the top and at the bottom to attach my sheet metal to. And here I have all of my cardboard templates cut out and installed. I ended up making the firewall out of 5 different pieces, not including the small filler panel I have to put up under the cowl. The cardboard did come in handy again for making notes on all of my templates, for adding or taking away metal as I cut. And this is what it looks like with the aluminum firewall mocked up in the car. I went through the same process I did on the rear sheet metal, made templates, traced them out on the aluminum, cut them out with the tin snips, filed down the edges, and used the sheet metal brake to bend where I needed to for mounting. Now, since this firewall is made in 5 different pieces, I tried to have 1 inch to 1.5 inch overlap on all of the pieces for riveting. Thank you for watching this video today. If you like what you see and will consider following me on this project, please subscribe to the channel.